Hey, what's up, family? I'm Rachel.
And I'm Joe.
And we are Two Crazy Ketos.
And if you're new to our channel, welcome. Here on Two Crazy Ketos, we do different things like recipe videos and we do product reviews. We talk about various keto topics, and every Monday we go live on Keto Beyond the Couch because life exists beyond the couch.
You can find us in different social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And we have a website, which is twocrazyketos.com, and that's where you're going to find all of our different recipes. Now, we do upload at least 5 new videos every single week, so make sure you subscribe to our channel.
And don't forget to hit the little bell icon, and that way every single time we get to talk to Connie, you'll be alerted to it.
I am super excited for today's keto audit.
Me too.
So today we're going to be speaking with Connie about her journey, and she's had some incredible success on keto, and she's done keto, carnivore, she's done beef, butter, bacon, and egg. She's a huge supporter of Dr. Berry. And today we're going to talk about some of the revelations she's found of herself and also what her journey has been like.
So let's get started. Hey, Connie, welcome.
Oh, thank you, guys. It's great to see you.
How are you doing today?
I'm actually doing really well. It's a beautiful day in Maui. I just finished my walk run out there along the beautiful scenes to see. And I'm just talking to you before as an excuse to stall on doing my weight work. And then, like I said, we have a great big old prime rib cooking in the sous vide that we're going to have for our OMAD, our 1 meal a day, midday. And then I'm off for a 72-hour fast. So it's just the same old day in the Joy household.
Wow, that is amazing. Now, what is your favorite cut of meat currently?
Oh, it's still prime rib.
Yeah.
Prime rib.
Prime rib.
It's where it's at.
Yeah, it's hard to not love a prime rib. I did have a bit of a meat aversion at the end of the last BBB&E. It was the second one I did with Dr. Berry's group. And by the end of it, I was getting a little weird but Dr. Berry recommends, and I found it did help, just eat eggs for a couple of days, pile on the butter, pile on the cheese, whatever you have to do, and then you come back and you're fine. And it did work. I came back and life was good again.
It's funny you talk about prime rib. I love prime rib, but I am not a ribeye eater. And I know it is the same cut of meat, but it is the way it is prepared. The slow roasting of that prime rib, the way it breaks down that fat and literally turns it into candy. I love it. But if you just put a ribeye on a grill, not my favorite.
Joe, try doing your ribeye steaks in the sous vide.
Oh, that's how I like to do it. But that kind of turns it into the prime rib, except for you need to have it nice and thick, which is not too bad.
We do.
So
yeah, we do too. Yes. And actually what I do for making it reasonable for shopping for these things, imagine whatever prices you pay, we pay double that here on the islands. During COVID, easily prime cuts of meat went up to $38, $40 a pound. So did our fish. So, if I'm looking at $40 a pound, $38 a pound for some fish or some prime rib, I'm going with the prime rib just because that's going to fill me up more. And that's kind of the end of it's not the end of our fish eating days. It's just that if you even go out to eat, you're going to get this tiny little postage stamp of fish. And that's just not going to do it, especially if you're eating OMAD. But what we do is our Costco here blessedly still does the primals. So we can get a primal of the strip steaks. We can get a primal of the ribeye steaks, and they do have fillets too. And they also do have the big briskets. So I just get the big primal of the ribeye, and I cut off, especially on the ends where they're a little uneven, I cut off the ribeye roast, and then the rest in the middle, I cut off some pretty chunky ribeye steaks. And I find I like them. I agree with what you say. I like them a little thicker, even if we split one.
I wanted to back up a little bit. We're already talking about steak, but I want to talk about what was life like before keto and how did you find keto?
I have lost over 100 pounds 4 times in my life. And you name it, Weight Watchers. I was actually a MetaFast coach for quite a while. You fill in whatever blank you want to do on the different diets. And what I found very discouraging was that you're not eating, or what you're eating is so low in fat. And now I understand that was absolutely the opposite of what we should have been doing. I ended up getting my gallbladder removed. Well, that's because I wasn't eating enough fat. And then they tell you to eat even less fat. And so it was this half a century, 50 years of battling with this. There was one period of time where I had followed, it was Atkins. It was called Atkins back then. And my daughter and I did really, really well on it one summer. Now, it wasn't the clean, it was definitely messy keto. But I mean, it was so much better than what we were doing, and it worked well for us. And then we went to another doctor, and in his best intentions, he put us on morning shakes, and the morning shakes were full of fruit and vegetable, just way too much carb. And off we were to the races again. We were hungry all day. So again, right back into the trap of how do we get rid of this weight? How do we get rid of this weight? So what finally happened is I was on 28 prescription drugs. My night table was looking like my mom's. And I had a call, and I know the exact date because my brother's birthday is on October 10th. Mine's November 11th. But I called my brother on his birthday, and I just said, I'm really concerned. I mean, I'm going to die. I might not see you again, seriously, between this COVID and everything else, because I'm taking all these pills. And he said, oh, Connie, you're getting older. You have genetics of mom. This is what's going to happen. And I hung up that phone. I said, no, I'm not going down the path of mom. Mom has been miserable for 28 years at the end of her life and in physical pain. And so I went, what worked? I just sat back and I said, forget all the stuff they told us. Forget everything. Because again, my background is medical laboratory technology. I'm a biochemist. I'm a microbiologist. Get me back to that. Let's just look at it with clean eyes. And I went, I want to go back to Atkins. That was the closest. And when I started searching for that, lo and behold, what kept popping up? Keto. Keto, keto, keto. Okay, what's keto? Well, you know me. I'm going to read the whole study. I'm going to read all the material. I was locked in with COVID. Well, guess what I did from morning to night? I read, I studied, I collected, and I ran into Dr. Berry's information. I ran into a lot of other really good people's information too. And I went, okay, you know what? This makes some sense. I know this is close to what worked for me before. Now I understand why that worked for me before. And I just dived into it, lost 100 and almost 30 pounds now. During that period of time, I had kidney failure from the medications were reacting with each other. I was in the hospital with kidney failure. I had heart surgery. I didn't know all I had to do was stop eating sugars and I wouldn't have needed the heart surgery. I had my gallbladder removed. I didn't know I just needed to eat more fats and I wouldn't have needed my gallbladder removed. And at the end, I just didn't eat as much drugs. So luckily I had been on keto for a couple months before the kidney failure. So as soon as they said they ruled everything else out, that it wasn't autoimmune, that it was an interaction of the drugs, I stopped almost all of them. I kept just the 2 heart medicines because and the 1 thyroid, because I understand those, you just don't go cold turkey. But my doctors were having seizures because I took all the metformin. I took all the diabetes medicine. I took all the statins. I took the high blood pressure medicine, and I threw it all in that trash can that they have next to the pharmacy for disposal. And they were just like, you can't do that. And I'm like, I'm doing that. I'm just letting you know I'm doing that. I was careful because, again, your heart medicine, you can't mess with that right off the bat. But I knew I wasn't diabetic anymore. I could already tell that in 6 weeks, diabetes was toast. So I was okay. That the result, and again, I'm monitoring my glucose. So the result was if I messed up in throwing all that out, well, I'd see that in my glucose and then I could go get that. You don't do that with drugs so again, you still talk to your doctors, guys. You don't just decide it's a good thing to do. But I knew I had to get forceful because it was just way too easy for these doctors to just say, okay, here's another pill. You got this problem, here's another pill. They spend maybe 6 minutes with you. Now I have different doctors now and we spend time together and we discuss, and they're my consultants and we work together on what we're doing. But I got myself down to 1 thyroid pill from all of that. It's all gone. All the complications are gone. 2 years ago, I couldn't walk. I was looking at back surgery. They were looking at spinal surgery. The neurologist couldn't pin down exactly where they wanted to work. And once they did, I was having back surgery. I'd caved to that point with the pain for so long that I just wanted it to stop. And I obviously didn't have back surgery, and I now run cutting down. Dr. Berry said, knock off the 5-mile runs. I'm back down to 2, and not every day, but I'm just rejoicing in the fact that not only can I walk, I can run if I want to. And that wasn't the case 2 years ago when I started keto.
And again, I do want to remind everyone, we are not doctors, nurses, or health professionals. We're just 2 people who've lost over 100 pounds apiece, like eating a ketogenic way of eating. And yeah, like Connie said, please do not just go haphazardly, drop all of your medications. Make sure you are talking to your doctor along the way. You are in charge of your own health journey. So if you don't want to take a certain medicine, talk to him about it. But We definitely don't want anybody to just all of a sudden like stop injecting themselves with insulin, stop taking heart medications. You really need to monitor everything as you go along.
Something that I wanted to bring up, because as I'm listening to you, and you are such a brilliant, accomplished woman, and I was thinking about over those 50 years of trying different things, the frustration you must have felt, because I felt that frustration. I don't have nearly your credentialing. And you're thinking to yourself, there's so much in life, there's so much in my work that I can figure out. Why is it that I can't figure out me?
I believe in Rachel. That's it. It couldn't occur to me that big pharma and a lot of the food producers would actually do something that could hurt me. See, and I should know better because I worked in sterility testing of radiopharmaceuticals for Union Carbide in the 1970s. And I knew the FDA was a little loose, and then Union Carbide was a little loose. So then I ended up going and working for IBM, which was the other extreme of safety. Everything had to be safe. Everything had to be, absolutely perfect. But you're right. That was the final pullback, because my thought is, look, I've supervised installations of supercomputers for IBM. Why can't I fix this, for God's sakes? And I understand a human being is not a thing. We're not, but we are a thing. We are partly a machine. We're an electromechanical machine. We're a chemical machine, and we are a test tube. And the difference is that Joe's a different test tube, and Rachel's a different test tube, and Connie's a different test tube. And then you start throwing all these drugs, and I'm counting some of this food as drugs because there are some serious chemicals in some of this food, and the pharmaceuticals. And then what mixes inside that can be completely different. So I had to pull back with the frustration. I can't tell you the tears. I can't tell you the times where I was a Medifast coach. I was supposed to be the example. Yeah, I lost over 100 pounds. Yeah, I could tell you exactly how you had to eat all this cardboard stuff and what it was supposed to do for you, but it was all soy, and I'm watching people get sick, and I'm like, this is not okay. And it wasn't working. So yeah, the frustration level was huge. What was my biggest fear starting keto was that I was going to lose this weight again, and it was all going to come back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, my husband's screaming, you got to tell the boys, you got to tell our kids, they need to know how great this is working. And I said, no, not yet. Yeah. They have watched me do this my credibility is shot. Okay. In this department, I can tell you a whole lot of stuff about a whole lot of stuff, but my credibility in this department shot. I have to see that it's sustainable. And I have to say the massive relief I feel right now of being a year of keto, doing BBB&E, coming out of that, realizing all vegetables are not my friend. And then moving on down the carnivore right now. And I said to my husband, I'm so grateful about is I look at the way we eat. It's a lifestyle. I kind of cringe a little bit when we call it a diet, because it's just what I eat. So it's a diet per se, that it's what I eat, but there is no going back. I know what it does. I don't even desire to go back. So that's like, well, what a horrendous relief, and that it keeps working. And I still, my other fear is that one day I'm going to wake up and the weight's just going to keep coming right back on, no matter how much hamburger I eat. And, that's that nasty little voice in the back. And it's just going to take time for that to calm down. But no, that was my biggest fear was, okay, so I'm going to I know I can do this. I could lose, I'm a champ at losing weight. If all else fails, I was anorexic when I was in ballet. You just stop eating. It's right. A guarantee to lose weight. But it's not sustainable. You'll die quicker being anorexic than you ever will even being, being overweight. By far, it's far more dangerous to you metabolically. So yeah, the relief, and I'm blessed that my husband came along for the ride, but I was determined. I mean, in the very beginning, I was still making I had a pasta machine. Okay, I need to explain this, but that's how much I like this. So when somebody says, oh, she didn't like her. Oh, I cooked pasta dishes. I cooked, I was a pastry chef pretty much. I mean, we had all this stuff. We went for 7 weeks to Italy, and Richard was in search of the best gelato on the entire country and on Sicily. But we went through all of Italy and Sicily, and very quickly, I couldn't even look at pasta. My legs had swollen up huge. I was sick. And so was half the people on our bus. We didn't understand that that's gluten. They're saying, oh, you're drinking more mineral water. Mineral water doesn't do that to you, you know, but it was the pasta. So all of a sudden it was like, oh, wait a minute, a switch is clicking here. And then I got tested. Yeah, I'm gluten sensitive. What a surprise. But I can look at that stuff now, but I was still making him his pasta dish. And finally he just said, don't do that. I'll eat whatever you're eating. Don't do that. And so then we were making the zoodles that I was making, fettuccine Alfredo on the zoodles. And then eventually we went, okay, you know what we're doing? It tasted great, but we're all diving for the chicken with the Alfredo sauce. Why don't we just have that? Bingo, you're carnivore. And that's just how quickly that each dish slid into carnivore. When you sit down in the morning for breakfast, what do we all dive for? It doesn't matter what I have in front of them. Everybody's going for the bacon.
There were two things there that you said I just wanted to highlight because it's something that I talk about a lot. We actually talked about it this morning on Keto on the Couch. And the first thing was that we're all unique. And, you know, it's one of my issues with macro calculators is that people go in and they see a macro calculator and you go, okay, well, what's your height, your age, your weight, what sex are you? And you plug it all in and it goes, eat this much. And almost every time it gives you not enough food to eat. That's the first problem. So then we end up slowing down our metabolism because we're eating well below our basal metabolic rate. But the thing about those macro calculators is they don't know us. They're basing it on our height, our age, our weight. Maybe if you're lucky, it's telling you plug in like, you know, how sedentary are you? And maybe if you're really lucky, it's going to ask you, what is your muscle mass? But it still doesn't take into account how long have you been under eating in your life? What is your past history with dieting like? And then we get frustrated because all it does is keep lowering it down and lowering it down and lowering it down. Instead of examining, we are all unique and that macro calculator doesn't know our uniqueness. So I love the fact that you pointed out, like, you can't just go by that. You have to really look at yourself and figure out what works for you. The other thing that you had said that really, I want everybody to hear this clearly is when you said, I couldn't go and tell my friends and my family about this yet because I'd lost credibility. People ask us all the time, how do I get my so-and-so on board? How do I get my brother? How do I get my children? How do I get my spouse? How do I get them to follow along with me? And you said it perfectly. Many of us have been dieting over and over again our whole lives. They've seen us gain 10, lose 10, gain 50, lose 40, you know, and they see this yo-yo and they say most of the time we do it for a couple of months and we're like, oh, that's it. And I quit. And most people are just looking at this when we start on keto and they're like, this is just another one of those fads. Give them a couple months and they're going to just quit anyway. I remember when I got started, one of the guys that I officiate with, and he was a younger guy, and he was like, you know, the second you go off of keto, you're going to gain it all back. That's what they're expecting. So the only way you're going to ever get your friends and your family to come on board is for you to do this long-term and for them to realize not that it works, but that it's sustainable.
Well, and also I think that you sort of brace yourself for the fact that you may be able to have more influence on strangers than you do on your own family. And you need to just kind of trust that you're planting seeds and you sort of naturally surround yourself, you know, once you go keto or carnivore with, you know, voices in the space. There's books that you're starting to purchase now. You know, you're listening to Dr. Barry and other people. And sometimes it's easier for people to listen to Dr. Barry in my life than it is for them to listen to me, even though, you know, I'm in closer proximity. And I sort of trust, okay, I'm going to help who I can when I can. And I will trust that in the end, somehow, we will get that message to our friends and extended family instead of, you know, worrying and that the people that you love the most will never be impacted by this amazing change in your life. Do you find now that other people are starting to ask you about your success?
All the time. But I just want to say too, in general, you got to not be like Moses coming down from the mountain with the 10 commandments. I stop being persuasive when I start being perceived as abrasive. Mm-hmm. So say again, you just have to like offer them a little bit. Don't try to. And my biggest problem is I have to remember. They'll always say, "What are you eating?" And I'm carnivore. That's your main part of your meal. Mm-hmm. That's not. I don't want to hear none of this palm-sized part of your hand kind of crap. And you eat all of that. And yeah, then you can have your happy veg and whatever. And smother it in butter, for God's sakes. No, this little scrapey thing. Smother it in butter. But what I find is that, just an example, the other day I was in Costco, and you can picture what my cart looks like. I'm only stopping at 3 or 4 places. And one of them was for the primals. And we have a contraband freezer we have hidden somewhere here. I will not ever admit to where it is. But I picked up 6 primals of meat. Well, you know what that looks like in my case. And then I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2 dozen packages of eggs, and 1 whole side of Kerrygold butter, and of course 9 packages of bacon.
You're going to get questions.
Yes. And what happened was hysterical. And these are people coming in on vacation. So, I mean, they want to get to the beach. But the fact that they're looking at this going, one guy came up and said, well, are you a chef? No, this is what I eat. And this is the most inexpensive way of buying it. And he's like, well, what do you do with this? The guy's picking it up. He said, what do you do with this? And I said, I cut it up into steaks and roasts. And he says, how? And I said, oh, this can't be any easier. It's already boned with a knife. And I'm seeing adult men standing there going, what? And I'm like, well, what do you think they come out in packages like that out of the cow?
Right.
Laying on the thing, you cut it up. All 3 of them that day had pumpkin pies in their cart, And they said, so what don't you eat? I said, I don't eat that. I said, it's all sugar. I said, that's what's going to kill you. Now, not one a year, but that type of food. I said, you need this. And one guy said, well, he was in a wheelchair. He already had 1 foot amputated from the diabetes. He was on the verge of having another foot amputated. He said he's getting ready for that. And he says, what do I do to change this? I said, well, don't eat that. So he gave it to me. He said, can you put this back for me? I said, I'd love to. He says, now I can't afford that primal. I said, okay, let's leave prime and let's go over here to choice. I will get you, instead of the ribeye, we will get you some New York strip. And I gave him a big hunk of brisket and I explained to him how to cook it, and off he went in his wheelchair. So, people, they'll listen, but you have to be like, I'm not telling you can't eat anything. I'm going through this family members every single day. I mean, they have all kinds of skin issues. They have all kinds of weight issues. And I know what will fix it, but they have to know what will fix it. I'm not going to be able to push them over the corner.
People ask me now what I eat. I was doing some lacrosse games over the weekend, and they always ask me, and I'm like, I've gotten away from the keto. I don't even say carnivore. I say I eat mostly meat. My wife and I eat about 2 pounds of beef a day. And that's where I leave it. And they're like, and I figure this way, I'm not scaring them off with the terms, but I have to tell you a quick funny story. Rachel and I actually went to BJ's a little bit earlier today. And I'm not going to talk about the fact that they were trying to push everybody to drink this vegetable fruit juice thing. And the lady was telling everybody, you have to have 3 servings of fruit and 3 servings of vegetable a day. But on the way out, we bought a turkey. We were buying a turkey. We're actually getting it for a video. And on our way out, the guy who, goes through and checks to make sure you have all your items and everything, he sees the turkey. It's up on the top. And he goes, the day they start making plant-based turkey, I'm leaving the country.
Oh, good. Oh, thank God.
And I'm like, I'm with you. We eat about 2 pounds of beef a day. And he looks at me and goes, you should be eating 3. And this was a young kid. This was not like somebody our age. I would say he was probably in his early 20s.
So there's hope for the future.
There's hope with some of the doctors. I love when you see some of the younger doctors now who are on the YouTube and the other channels. And I mean, these are accomplished neurosurgeons and whatever. Mm-hmm. And they're coming out going very forcibly, stating what you should be eating and not eating. And I'm like, okay, so now there is hope.
Yeah.
And also, too, you can only beat your doctors up so much. But I've dropped doctors who were just clearly not interested in keeping up. They were just doing their 5 minutes a day per patient, referring you where they could, giving you some pills and getting you out of there. Well, that's not helpful. But if you're saying this is my son and my husband and whatever, and they're just, I'm feeding them, I'm eating less. Well, first of all, you might be needing to eat more. But I'm eating less, and they're looking really, really good. We just have to wait longer, and it's our hormones. It is just the way our glandular system is. But if anybody needs more fat in their diet, it's women, and I'm not saying men don't, but I'm just saying we really need to get much more serious about what we're eating.
Well, and that's a fantastic point. I love how you mentioned that your evolution into more carnivore happened very naturally. It wasn't like you were at this point, I'm going to cut out this vegetable and I'm trying to cut out vegetables, but it just sort of, fell away naturally, which is awesome because it truly was your choice based on your own taste and, not a thing of where you feel like you're deprived. You did this because you didn't want anymore.
And the switch to carnivore was just that. It was BBB&E. We came out on the other end of it. And it was like, well, I'll tell you a quick story. The whole purpose of BBB&E is to pick out foods that maybe you're still eating that maybe not be the best, or you don't feel the best, but you don't realize it yet. Mm-hmm. And our first round through this, we refer to it as the cauliflower syndrome or cauliflower effect. We come out of BBB&E. COVID was running around, so we were isolated here by ourselves. So we just made our turkey gravy, and I made cauliflower mash, and I make it with the cream cheese. It is delicious. We had a whole bunch of that, and a couple hours later, we both were sicker than dogs. And we felt so bad that, and I mean, I love my cauliflower. I eat my broccoli, I eat my Brussels sprouts, I eat my cabbage. No, this was not going down well. So we just went to bed at like 4 and said, we're sleeping this off. We were both miserable. And the next day I had the same thing, but I used the protein sparing bread underneath and made like open turkey sandwiches, and we were fine. So this time on BBB&E, it was like, okay, what was going to be our cauliflower moment? Let's see what pops its head up. And what it was for my birthday. I was very much looking forward to my keto chow ice cream with my Lily's milk chocolate chips melted and made into crackle on the top and some keto whipped cream. I didn't even eat more than a quarter of it. I fared better than my husband did, Mr. Ice Cream Manic guy. It was like, I can't eat this. And I said, okay, we're going to have to sneak up on it slower and smaller amounts. But we call it our cauliflower moment. So after we do these, and we're going to do them again, after we're going on the low carb cruise next June.
Oh, yes.
And when we come back, we're going on BBB&E to clear out the cobwebs and then just see again what pops out. I think that's a great short term. Either do it for 2 weeks, a month. We did it for almost 2 months, and then just come out and say, okay, let's reintroduce things slowly and see, pay attention, be very deliberate, pay attention and see what we notice. And there's surprises in there. Every single time there's been surprises.
Can you speak a little bit about what you've noticed about yourself in regards to your fat intake and how that has changed?
I was, again, half a century, guys, 50 years of being screamed at that fat was your enemy. I mean, smearing a mayonnaise as thin as, really, honest to God, there was no mayonnaise on this piece of bread. I remember getting yelled at in ballet way back because two of us split a head of lettuce, no dressing, just a head of lettuce. And it was like, you did that before a performance with pigs. Okay, wow. That was all we ate all day. I was that head of lettuce. And we were losing muscle mass. We weren't strong enough anymore. We couldn't keep on point anymore. Well, because we were emaciated and we had no energy. So you go through your whole life being told that. Very first thing they tell me after I get my gallbladder removed, first and only time I ever saw a nutritionist come into my hospital room. And she explained to me that now you can't eat any fat. So yes, you can have that ham for Easter, but you have to cut off the little rim of fat around the outside. And you can have vegetables, but no butter. And you have to dip your fork into the salad dressing to eat some salad. And so again, my whole life, eating fat was the enemy. You get on keto. And I thought, well, I really upped my fats. And that is why keeping track on Chronometer and some of these other products is kind of helpful. You don't have to. If you don't like doing this, you don't have to. But I find it, for me, it's really helpful. And it's been helpful for me now to go back even over a year or 2 years and say, what was I eating then? And then in the middle of that, my weight loss stalled. It was doing really, really well. I lost 130 some pounds. It was doing really, really well, but then it stalled. And I thought, oh, okay, so what's different? And I instinctively cut back the fat, anti-instinctively, I should say. And yes, the weight loss took off again. But what I started seeing is that my glucose was going up. Now, I know people would love to have a glucose in the 90s, but that was high for me, especially while I was fasting. I'm doing a 72-hour fast. My glucose shouldn't be going up to 100. And my ketones, I was lucky to break 1. I was lucky to break 0.5. I was lucky to be considered in ketosis, where in the beginning when I started keto, I was up there all the time. So in this last BBB&E especially, I just got a feeling that, okay, maybe I'm hearing all these people are eating a stick of butter a day, all these people, and I'm like, I'm nowhere near that. Well, maybe I need to look at that a little harder. And I was looking at people who are doing this and are promoting it now. I got a little stuck in that protein sparing cycle that was going on there, and I felt that was not good for me. It may be wonderful for some other people, but I don't believe it's good for anybody long term. You need more calories than that, and you certainly need more fat than that. And so over the BBB&E, in the middle of it, 2 weeks in, I switch and I start smearing butter on everything. And all of a sudden during my fast, I'm now 1, 2, 3, 4 on my ketones, and my blood glucose is in the 50s and 60s, which, by the way, is just completely fine, folks. I feel completely fine. And I know a lot of people do. You get in the 40s, and then you might need to go eat something. But all of a sudden that happened. Now, is the number important? No. But what that shows was, in the matter of 2 weeks, it got halfway there after 1 week, and 2 weeks in, it was a tremendous metabolic difference. And it was highlighted especially by the fasting. Now, when I come out now, I'm usually a 1 on my ketones, even when I'm regularly eating. That I hadn't seen in a long time. I feel better. The fasting feels better. I think overall this is better. I understand. And I also, the ironic thing is I find I eat less meat because, especially if I have some of the butter first, and I don't know if that's just because the butter's filling you or if the butter's providing the fat for your hormones that need to tell you that you are full. So that both can be going on at the same time. But I noticed that. So instinctively now, when I just follow that, and Connie always eats as much as she wants. I don't, even though I track and I can show you my numbers all the way back, I don't stop because, I'm at whatever number of calories. That's ridiculous. First of all, you can never accurately measure your calories. You can't. This thing can't come down and analyze what's on your plate. And you can put 2 ribeyes side by side and have huge differences in numbers and what's inside of there. But I always eat till I'm full, especially when we do OMAD. And if I am hungry later in the day because maybe I went for a longer run or I did more weight work or whatever, yeah, I'll pull out when I say bread from now, and you know what I'm talking about, the egg white bread, and I'll put hunks of butter on top of it or hunks of cream cheese or something, and I will sit down and I will have something else to eat till I'm not hungry. But if I'm not hungry, then I'm not hungry, and that's it. But I never stop because, I've hit this macro. The same thing for me. The protein. I'm trying to bring up my fat, but if I'm like still hungry and there's a hunk of steak in front of me, I'm finishing it. I'm eating till I'm full.
I don't even know where to start because like everything you are saying are things that we talk about. First of all, the fact that you're willing to experiment on yourself. Mm-hmm. So many people, they see something on the internet, they're like, I need to try that. They try it for 2 days. It didn't work. And then they try something else. I mean, when you talked about the protein sparing modified fast, the whole idea of even beef, butter, bacon, and egg really came out, when we started doing it with Dr. Berry last year, because I was frustrated with so many people doing protein sparing modified fast. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I think for certain people, it could really help jumpstart things. But I started seeing people going, well, protein sparing modified fast is supposed to be like 1 day a week. Instead of doing a fast, you just eat some protein so that you don't lose some muscle mass. So if 1 day a week is good, 5 days is even better.
And 7 days would rock.
Right. And I went to Dr. Barry and I'm like, I'm concerned about this. And he was like, well, I did this video a couple of years ago. Nothing ever really happened with it. And I'm like, we will do it. Let's do it on a video. We'll track ourselves. And for me, it really was eye-opening that like, oh my gosh, you can get in touch with satiation and we don't have to track anything. And then when you talk about, you're seeing a lot of people now saying, yes, I need to eat more fat. And we've always said you need to start off with a gram of protein to a gram of fat and adjust your fat from there. And I think that's a good starting point. I think many people undereat protein. When I'm seeing people that are eating 30, 40, 50 grams of protein, like you're not eating enough protein. That's not enough to maintain your muscle. That's, again, my personal opinion. And then we're all been trained that fat is evil. And so and we end up in this situation. So if you start off with a gram of fat and a gram of protein, and then you start increasing the fat from there and going, okay, that's where I feel good. You find what is good for uniquely you. But I love what you said, that you're not lowering your protein. you're
Mhm.
increasing your fat. So many people think that you have to put them like they're like on a seesaw. Like, if in order to raise my fat, I got to lower my protein. No, we can keep our protein where we're at and just increase the fat until we get that place where we feel good.
Especially if, again, we've been maybe a little under our protein, or if you were following some of those macros that I've done some of those macro calculators, and I just looked at it and went, that's not right, or that's too low calories. And again, I'm real sensitive to doing these low calorie kind of things because I know they're not sustainable, and they're a trap to get you into. And you're 100% right, Joe. I mean, there's cases where maybe the protein sparing has a fit for a very short period of time for a very specific thing. But it's a natural thing in our mind. If a little bit works, then we want to do this a lot because we want a lot and we want it fast and we want it instant. And no. And I have every book. I have every one of that person's cookbooks right over here. Are there good recipes in there for me to use? Yeah, there. I mean, it gave me bread back, and I'm delighted to have that. But I cover it again. It's a vehicle to carry my butter, or it's a vehicle that carries a hunk of avocado mayonnaise with some beef sliders or whatever. You're not going to do anything long term if you're miserable.
That's right.
If every day you're like, oh God, I'm hungry. I don't like this. This is sawdust. By the way, what are we eating? We are not eating cardboard anymore. We were. A Metafast, you were eating things that were like this big around of macaroni and cheese. It was completely synthetic and full of soy and everything yucca. And it's a technical term. And what happens? It's not sustainable. Your body's going to revolt because it's not a good place to be. Now we're spending a lot of our lives fixing that. But I think the butter fixes you, heals you faster. And again, it's not just a fixation on butter. It's the animal fat products.
Fats.
I think it's all part of healing us. And then as we get healed, naturally, I started eating a little less beef because I wasn't hungry anymore. But I'm not playing games with, I'm going to try to get under X number of calories. Calories is immaterial. The only purpose I use calories for, as I try to explain to my husband, is for the 80-20 as a thumb shot of where to start. Yeah. And that gives me my calorie ratio, gives me my fat to my protein kind of ratio. And that was the starting point. And I just threw a dart, picked a number in the middle and said, let's just start there and see where it goes. But I'm not going to stop because, I just hit my,
do not eat to macros.
Yeah.
Right. That is something brilliant. That we try to shout from the rooftops. Don't eat to macros is somehow where we got the idea that eating 2 eggs and 2 slices of bacon is what a normal breakfast is supposed to be for some. And I laugh, even if you look at the standard American diet, right? You go to the grocery store and look at all of the overly processed garbage. And Rachel mentioned it this morning on Keto on the Couch. Turn over to the nutrition label. What does it say? Based on an average 2,000 calorie a day diet. But how many people who are actually trying to eat healthy are eating 2,000 calories? Because most of my coaching clients come to me eating less than 1,400. So if they're telling you eating the garbage that you're supposed to be eating 2,000 calories, why do we think that eating beef and butter and bacon and eggs and fish and all of these good healthy animal products should be less than that? I do want to say, though, just like we said, like, don't go in and slash your protein. You don't want to jump into this and immediately say, like, hey, Connie said I should eat 4 sticks of butter a day. You have to find what works for you. Start somewhere and slowly increase to where you feel satiated.
So you've had such incredible results as you continue through your personal journey. Is there something that you still struggle with? Something that, a hill that you just haven't traversed yet?
Yeah, there's 3 subjects, three different points. One, what is exercise? What is good exercise? What is reasonable exercise? What is no longer helping me reach my goal? I mean, I had Dr. Barry. I had several other fitness coaches telling me, knock off the running. I was running 5 miles a day. I was running because I was thrilled that I could run. And it's beautiful here. I mean, I'm running along the shorelines. I mean, it's gorgeous. But it wasn't helping my goals, and it was killing my back. So I'm now playing with, where do and I think I just found a ratio. I can run up hills, and I'm living on the side of a volcano. So it's either this or it's this. We don't have any of that. So I can run up the hill but I have to walk down it. And the down was the real fun part. But the up is I'm taking it and I cut it back to 3 times a week. So that I'm still working on balancing that out. There is no, oh, Connie's done. She knows what she's going to do for exercise. And that may change next year as I get older. Fasting. Now, why do I fast? And some people may have heard, oh, she does 72-hour fasts every week. Well, Dr. Berry challenged me to do that, to deal with the wings. He said that was the quickest way of going after that. Do you have to do that? No, you don't have to do it at all. Kelly Hogan says she only fasts when she sleeps. And look at the shape she's in. I think you're either OMAD or too mad, 2 meals a day or 1 meal a day. I think the more you extend the period of not eating in between is actually a good thing for your body metabolically. Do you have to? No. Start with a 24-hour fast. That's OMAD. And then maybe you just skip one day. That what you're doing is skipping one meal. And I always pick a day when I'm out and I'm busy and I have things to do. We're going to Costco. That's an hour and a half drive one way. And so that's our rule. We're going to the doctors. We're doing whatever. And it would just be a nuisance to be eating that day. So it's an easy day to skip. The other challenge, what is my challenge? My challenge is the sweets. Way down deep in there, I am a carb addict. And I have to be very careful. I took it. Yeah, you're going to know this because my other favorite thing in the whole world is Zip Fizz. And we're in Hawaii, and the Zip Fizz helps me really drink more fluids. We definitely, both my husband and I definitely drink more fluids. When we're doing things now, we still haven't brought the Zip Fizz back in. We're being, after our ice cream experience, we decided we're going to hold off on the Zip Fizz for a couple more weeks and then try that all by itself and see what happens. But if I bring in the sweets, I call those, the Lily's milk chocolate, sugar-free. And you can put a chocolate bar right here next to it. And the bag of Lily's open right here. The chocolate bar is not going to give me any grief. Neither will the donuts, neither will any of the other stuff. But because it says so on the bag, I can eat this whole bag for like 4 carbs and almost no calories. Well, Connie knows that's not true. Connie knows that is going to have a metabolic impact on me big time. We make raise. And Connie's not going to stop thinking about it until that stupid bag is gone. I call them the little rat bastards. Count out 26 of them. Yeah. No. And so what's left of my challenge? The left of my challenge is I feel so good in that the biggest terror I had in this whole thing is that one day I'm going to wake up and even though I'm just eating BBB&E or whatever, the weight's going to come back on and I'm not going to be able to stop it. And we'll be right back to where we were before. And that would just be soul crushing. I'm longer this goes. I've been in 2 years keto, 1 year carnivore. I don't see the way we eat changing at all. I can't see a reason to go back to anything. We don't even want to give them the option that if somebody said it won't bother you, you can go back now. I would be like, yeah, no, not really. I'm good. That's my little, and it's not the end of the world because again, if my worst Achilles heel is Lily's milk chocolate chips, I'm going to be fine. And that's the release of the reins. I'm going to be fine. Do I have to be aware that that's back there? Yes, I have to be aware. Am I in such a bad shape, which I happily didn't? I did not touch any kind of a regular dessert of any kind of sweetness of anything for 2 years. And then on our wedding anniversary, just right after the Dr. Berry's event, they brought out a dessert, popped it on the table, and I just thought, that's fine. It's bread pudding. I don't like bread pudding. Richard will eat it all. And I had 1 scoop, and it was good. But it was a little thing, and we split it, and the world did not end. But I wouldn't eat it by itself, ever. It has to be with where were we? We were in a steakhouse, and we just had big Whopper steaks. And so, yeah, we had some of that, and the world went on. That's not the problem for me. I just have to be aware of the stuff coming into the house, and it can't become a thing where for a while there, we were having ice cream every night. No, that can't be. It has to, that I have to put into some kind of a bracket. And even he says it, no, it can't become a daily thing. So you have to know your limits, but you can't start out with excuses. If I started keto, and I'm the type of person who, this was serious. This was life and death. And I knew I couldn't, quote, cheat coming out of the gates. So even Dr. Berry says, it's your birthday, it's your anniversary, it's Christmas. Have Aunt whoever's piece of pie, a small piece, but then you leave it. You leave it that day. It doesn't roll into the next day and the week after. And everybody comes to our house and they bring pies for Thanksgiving or Christmas. They're taking them home with them. It's not rolling into the next day for us.
I think that's a good, I think everything you're saying is really, really helpful. And I think that as you move forward, it's good for us to write down and start every day, especially for people like us who have had success and failure over and over again, where I've seen the scale go down and then see that followed with it going up. There is some fear. There is an itch in the back of my mind that is very aggravating. That's like, at some point, you're going to lose this momentum. At some point, the bottom is going to fall out of this. And I think it's important to start every day with saying, I've had great success and I'm going to continue having great success, and to face that as kind of a positive affirmation every day, because before the thought comes, and it will come, I need to address it. I need to get ahead of this. And I think that just as we had talked about how sometimes with PSMF, people started thinking, well, if 2 days is great, then 7 days will be better. I think that when it comes to restricting ourselves, sometimes we wrongly take the opposite view, which is, well, if 5 days of dessert would be great, 3 days would be better, and never would be the best. To never, ever have anything ever. I should really just plan on never having anything that I want. And that's not a good place to go from a sustainability either. So I think that what you do is, just like you're studying yourself in so many areas, you sit down outside of the moment and you say, okay, what do I truly believe is reasonable? This is not an emotional attachment. How many days do I want to go for this run? How many miles? How do I feel? Well, you run 1 mile. Do you feel good? Okay. Then you keep up with 1. Maybe you push it to 1.5 miles. Do you still feel good? Does it still feel sustainable? Okay. If you get to a point where you're like, wow, this really hurts my back, then that is the stop. You do the evaluation just like you've done all of the evaluation. And you say to yourself, okay, I think 3 days a week for some sort of a dessert, maybe that's where I want to be. Okay, well, if I feel like 3 days makes me want it 4 days, okay, well, maybe I pull back a little bit more. But I think that the wheels that got you into this parking space are the wheels that are going to get you out of this parking space. So you're fantastic at data collection on yourself, and you know yourself uniquely. So feeling like, okay, am I wanting to exercise and also never have a dessert again because I'm afraid that I will gain this weight back? Then wow, no. Then this action that I'm taking is rooted in fear. So I don't like that as my motivation. So I'm going to get reasonable with it. I want to do strength training because I know that this will help me. And I want to enjoy some Lily's chocolate chips sometimes because I just like it. So I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to test myself, and we'll see where it goes. But I am going to trust myself that, you know what? I did figure myself out. I do understand, Connie. And moving forward, I will be able to tweak it where it's necessary.
Your big word right there was trust yourself, because we have an ingrained of not so trusting ourselves because we feel that we've gotten ourselves back into this pickle again so many times. But if I can get to the point now, which I do, I now know I have the tools and the knowledge. I can trust myself that no matter what on earth I do, I can get this back. And I don't mean in a month or a year. I mean like right away. If somebody plops one on in between us out at dinner, and especially if it's an expensive restaurant, it's going to be a little dessert. It ends. It ends right there. I mean, it ends as quick as we can both shovel with our spoons. And when we get the empty plate in the middle, it's all over. It's not coming home with us. I'm not making more tomorrow. It's done. So yes, that was delicious. God, that was wonderful. Wasn't that great? That was a great dessert. Are we ever going to see it again? No. Yep. But we can enjoy that moment and not steal that moment from ourselves as saying, oh, that was bad. That was bad. You shouldn't have done that. Well, no, I'm going to be on a plane all day tomorrow. There's no chance of me having anything good to eat.
That is something that we have actually said, for ourselves in the past. That if we go on a trip, if we go somewhere and we come across something that is just absolutely looks amazing, sounds amazing, something we may never, ever have again, even if it's not keto, we might consider indulging. Now, at this point, 6 years in, we have yet to come across that thing. Like, we've had things be like, that sounds, is it really going to be worth how I'm going to feel for those few hours after? Like, we haven't found it yet, but we have also said to ourselves at this point in our journey, I know that I'm so far removed from sugar and from that stuff that I know that I could have it and not worry about it triggering things. But I also look at myself going, I'm this far removed from sugar. I'm probably not going to feel too good when I, have that, because again, no sugar in 6 years. I can't even imagine like the high, that craziness feeling that I would get after having it. Now, Connie, before we let you go, we have 3 questions that we always like to ask people when we have them on our podcast. So the first question we always ask is, when you first got started on keto, what was your biggest fear? And I know you mentioned that it wasn't going to work, but is there something else?
No, I think the biggest fear was looking stupid again. So I kept it pretty much to myself for a long time. My husband, again, so supportive and wonderful about just whatever I can do to help you, whatever you need. I love you just the way you are. You don't have to do anything different. But if you do and it works, I will do whatever I can to help you get there. The only fear was that I was going to do this. I knew I could be successful and lose the weight. I'm a weight loss champion. But would it stay? Would I do all of this, go through all this mental anguish, soul searching anguish, get myself down there and watch it slip away, and I don't have the control over it to keep it? That was my only fear. That is gone. That really is gone. This is not a diet as in something I'm going to do short term. This is forever. And yeah, occasionally, maybe in the next couple of years, maybe on a keto cruise even, or a low carb cruise, I may have a dessert that we've had on the same boat before, many, many years ago before keto. And the good news is I can have a bite of it and then push it away because it doesn't cost me anything and I don't have to eat the whole thing. And I'm sure if I push it in the middle of the table with my family, somebody will eat it. Right. So it's not going to go to waste, but it can go to waste. And so that's the other little key. It was like, oh, we can't waste this. Yes, I can. If it's not healthy, I look down at my food now. And this food is either going to nourish me, be neutral, or hurt me. If it could hurt me, then I have no problem walking right out to the dumpster, turning it upside down and dropping it in it. Okay, I have no trouble with that. So yeah, that would be the one fear, but I think that it's handled and I'm actually kind of pleased.
Now, what was your greatest surprise once you started keto? What were you surprised to find out?
That I wasn't going to miss this stuff. The first few weeks, again, I made my own bread. Okay, you have to understand. Okay, we were in this deep. That all of a sudden, I'm not making pasta. I'm not making bread. I wasn't a big rice fan. I mean, I would make rice with some dishes where it fit. But it was just like, well, this is odd. I wasn't a cereal eater, so that didn't matter. It was just felt weird to not have it. Now, the biggest surprise is it would feel weird to have it. It would. Mm-hmm. It does not feel weird not to have it. In fact, I was trying to. We did this exercise a couple days ago. What did we used to eat? What did breakfast kind of? It was those damn shakes. Okay, fine, those are gone. What did we used to? Well, we used to have sandwiches, and then what did we have? Well, we'd have a lot of pasta, a lot of potatoes, and breads and stuff. And we were sitting there, we had to think about it. That was a surprise. Now it's odd. It doesn't. The bread bowls don't come to our table, but if we're with people and they have it, it doesn't bother us at all. But it was odd in the beginning. So the surprise was that would no longer be weird.
So last question, Connie. What is your number one recommendation to someone who's just starting keto?
I would say, first of all, Dr. Berry's little brochure that he has that you can download, that's a great giveaway. I send those out all the time to people or print them for them because it's the basics. The biggest thing when you're talking to somebody new is it not to be Moses coming down from the mountain with the 10 commandments. And I have to get them off of talking about what I eat because I'm carnivore. I need to get them back to what they can eat and to focus on what they can still eat. My sister is still a little fixated on what she can't eat. And I'm like, no, but look at all the things you thought you couldn't have before that you can have now. In fact, they're goods for you. So I try to turn them into that. I get down to the basics. You're going to have some good meats. Don't be afraid of the fatty meats. In fact, they're good for you. Don't cut all the fat off of it. And have yourself a lower carb veggie. Okay. Smothered in butter. All right. That's your start. Breakfast, eggs and bacon. You can do this. Eggs and bacon. If you can't make bacon every morning, I make 2 pounds. I don't make anything less than 2 pounds of bacon at a time. And anything that's left over ends up in a bag that my husband uses when I'm fasting. So, but start there. Start whatever meal, and it doesn't have to be breakfast anymore. That could be lunch, eggs and bacon. And you can make hard-boiled eggs and some bacon and warm it up in your microwave at work. So start people there, and then just say, okay, a low-carb veggie, or your salads. Just watch your salad dressing with the sugar. And I said, there's only really 3 groups that you really can't go to. Sugar in all its forms, pure sugar. You really have to stay away from the grains, all of them. And I always add here, rice and corn as a grain, and the processed seed oils. Okay. Those are gone, but eat your meat, eat your veggie, smother it in butter, bacon and eggs, have fun. Okay. And then fine tune. And like I said, your meat can be anything. So people are like, oh, I like my fish. Well, then have your fish. And by the way, slobber it in butter. Oh, I love my salmon. You know how you've been cooking salmon in that spray oil all along? Throw the spray oil out and slobber it in butter or ghee. And there you are. That's your start. And then fine tune. And you'll always be fine tuned. I'm still fine tuning. I found out that pork and chicken aren't necessarily our best thing. I mean, I live on the land of pork here. I mean, I'm at the land of Spam, for God's sakes, in Hawaii. And I've learned that, okay, not my thing. Not good. It just doesn't sit well with me. Beef, I've never, beef and me are good.
Thank you so much, Connie. Now, again, if you are interested in a keto audit, we'll have a link down below where you can go ahead and sign up for one for free. And again, just start simple. Find what works for you. Experiment on yourself over time. Not if it doesn't work, go ahead and try something new the next day. But just remember that you are a unique person, and what works for everybody else doesn't necessarily work for you. That's going to be the end of today's podcast. Again, just a reminder, make sure you head down below and hit that subscribe or follow button. Until next time, I'm Joe.
And I'm Rachel.
And we are the 2 Crazy Ketos.